Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome back. You're watching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel. Today I'm showing you something that I have recently come into ownership of, and I'm going to be tasked with overhauling this machine. And I found it was listed, I think on one of the sites, I can't remember which one, for local purchase, and I went out and took a look at it, and I was running a bunch of errands that day and went by and said, okay, I'll bite. So when you look at this table, it is interesting because just beyond the table, just beyond it, behind it, what you can actually see a Singer 201 in its lovely cabinet with walnut veneers. So that's early 1950s. Well, this table is not that. Now, this is really really for the table and cabinet series, I suppose. But when you look at this table, what era does it speak of to you, to your eye? It is, I can verify one thing for you, it is not real wood. This, the grain that you see is wood laminate, right? And we know that, I can't tell you when the very first wood laminate showed up. It was probably sometime in the 1950s. But it becomes increasingly popular in the 1960s and into the 70s. This particular table reminds me of something you might have seen, say, late 1960s, early 70s. And part of there's like it's kind of interesting. I think this is sort of painted brown. This is the side of this material. And if you look closely down here, you'll see that, of course, there was a strip of laminate. At some point, the laminate is pretty tough stuff, but it's vulnerable on its edges. And at some point, a giant piece, I believe, came off of here, and even down here, you can actually see, I believe, the texture. If I zoom in a little bit for you there, you'll see the texture. And that is a giveaway that this is not made of plywood with veneers or solid wood with veneers. It's made of particle board, sometimes called OSB. And of course, they would take that material and put laminates on it. Now, that doesn't mean that sewing tables were cheap. In the 60s and 70s, you still had to pay a lot of money. However, I'm curious to see if any of you can guess what machine is in this table. Because I typically don't buy machines from the 70s unless they're Kenmore's. And can any of you tell, and this may sound like a silly question, you haven't seen inside the table yet. How could you possibly know what machine is in here? Well, I'm going to open it up for you, I promise, but I want you to pay attention to this right here, right? I want you to think about that. It's a brown steel lever, right? So it has a knee activated speed control option, which might sound surprising given the year of the table. So let's open this up, and I'll finally stop just dropping the hints, and let's see what is actually in here, because when I first saw this, I was surprised. Well, I was just as surprised as any of you. So I'm going to take this, and this is kind of a funny lid. You know, the table is not flat. It was not designed to be flat. It's almost, two levels here for whatever reason. But that's how they went with that table design. Make sure that I don't crush my fingers here as I lay it down. And if you look over here to the left side, you may notice that they could have designed it this way because it actually, well, I say it extends the width of the table, but then again, over here you can have a drop off right there as well. Okay, so, well, what do you see there, folks? You see a beige I'll bet you something. And if I zoom in to show you the hinges on this table, hinges are funny. They look like Singer hinges, could be Singer hinges, or they could be hinges that were simply adapted for some other brand of machine. Well, this table, by the way, has a spring-loaded helper to get the machine up. All right, I'm going to raise the machine up and show you exactly what is in this table, because I was sure surprised and I wasn't expecting it. I really was not expecting this. This, of course, is a Singer Slant-O-Matic 503 model. Now, the 500 model would, of course, have a large knob on the front, but of course, that one had built-in stitch cams, decorative stitch cams, and it had an option to use a there were a few extra cams you could buy for it. Well, this is the 503 model, and in this model, you can use decorative stitch cams, but you need to add them. In fact, it requires a cam. If I remember my own videos in the past, I'm pretty sure you have to have, as this would have been true on the 403 as well, you have to have a cam here for the zigzag to work. I believe I'm right. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. But why is this here? What is, and this, remember the 500 series of the Slant-O-Matic legendary sewing machines that Singer produced, they come out around 1958 or so, and this, of course, is the machine style that its fans have nicknamed the Rocketeer. Singer didn't call it that, but people call it this because of its really funky and wild, atomic age styling. I mean, it's pretty funky, especially for Singer, because Singer was a fairly conservative company in many ways. So the question is, what is it doing here in this table? Well, remember I told you that Singer often would create a platform, and of course this is their longer bed size. This is where the bed size got extended, and Singer was still selling their older designs, their classic designs, right, which would end right about there, and that's why you often have a plate filling on the side, because Singer wanted their tables to fit both the original classic Singer bed width as well as the new one. It was very, very smart of them. I really am amazed sometimes with some of the things that Singer actually thought about. So, but still, why is it in here? Because this table, I'm pretty certain, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I'm pretty certain this table was not available in 1958. It just wasn't. They hadn't gotten to a table that looks like this. This comes later. So one of the things that you will, many of you who have vintage machines have discovered, if you haven't, you will when you get a vintage machine, is and I've shown all of you. I like to go through the. It's either in a table or in a box or a bag or whatever it is that you get with a machine, to go through and see what's with it, because very often you get a sewing machine with, sometimes you'll get parts that don't seem to go with the machine, and well, the reason for that is they don't go with the machine. People would collect sewing things over a lifetime, and often they would either buy something because they forgot that their machine took, for example, this takes a slant shank foot. All of the Slant-O-Matic Singers do, and that's fine. But if you bought it in 1958 and here you are, and some years later, and you go to the sewing store, I need some sewing feet, you may have totally forgotten that. So very often you end up with accessories and parts and bits and bobbins that just don't fit. Or maybe friends come by and say, hey, I've got some sewing stuff. You want it? Sure. And they put it in their table and then they go on. So it is interesting you never know what you're going to get. To paraphrase the famous line from Forrest Gump, you really don't. But it's kind of fun to kind of look around and see what's what. So I am going to tip this machine back because I want to show you all the inside of this table. And the reason is that it looks different than other Singer tables that would have come out earlier. So here you see, well, right now you see a lot of dust and old thread and God knows what. I haven't, like I say, I've just gotten this. I've got to take my shop vac and get it cleaned out. And you'll see more filth as we look down below. But I do want you to notice something. If I can align things properly here. So, what do you see down below here? Well, what you see covered in filth is looks like pet hair. Who knows what it is? What I've done is I've got my fingers on that lever I was talking about, and when I push on it, what do you see? Well, you see the mechanism that's getting ready to. It looks like it's designed to push onto the foot pedal, and there is a bracket to hold the foot pedal. However, this doesn't quite work the same. Why is that? I'm going to show you from another angle why. So take a look in there, everyone. Although the big, large lever that hangs down is reminiscent of Singer's earlier knee control setups. I mean, they didn't reinvent the wheel just because. However, it's not pointing in the direction I'm used to seeing. And look at the bracket. This bracket is designed for a foot pedal that this machine doesn't use. So again, this table was adapted for this machine, and I have no idea who did it and why they did it, but clearly someone had a Singer 503, and what did they do? They needed a table, and they had a newer Singer machine. I believe it was a Singer machine. And let's see. Do you guys see this right here? Right there? Let me see if I can get the camera in a better spot. Yeah, right here. Well, when the machine folds down, it's got a really strong, heavy spring on there. I don't know if you can hear it making a funny sound. But anyway, when the Slantomatics had come out, Singer, I don't believe, had those springs, or at least I'm not familiar with them. So there is a time warp, a time differential between the machine and the table. Sometimes you'll get a newer machine model in an older table because, again, Singer for many, many decades would keep the same footprint, and this allowed for flexibility to their credit. Now, some people like the laminate, the laminate material on the tables here from the 60s and 70s. From a practical side, they're really tough. They're scratch resistant. They don't get damaged nearly as badly from, someone who's setting a wet glass on them. And that was the main reason that people were encouraged. It was incredibly popular. I remember my grandparents having, wood laminate and talking about how awesome it was because they didn't want to polish furniture anymore, I guess. And when something is new, people often gravitate toward it for all sorts of reasons and marketing. I love the older tables because not only because they're made of solid wood or plies of wood, but they have those gorgeous veneers on them. But that's not the reason I got this, and hopefully someone will be able to enjoy the use of this table And when I hopefully get this machine, because the person that I got it from told me it had problems. So, and they didn't go into detail. So we're going to find out what kind of problems it has. It is a beautifully made machine. And there are many of you who love this, the slantomatic designs after the 300 series, because with the with the 401As, the whole 400 and 500 series is when you start to get the decorative stitch options. So we'll see how this turns out, and I'll be I haven't really, literally just showing the machine. I have not actually looked at the machine yet. And so we will take a look and kind of go through and see what, I have no idea what's wrong with this machine, and I'm going to have to diagnose it. Maybe you guys can help. Maybe you've had one. I have restored many of these before. Even before I had my channel, I had, they're just incredible machines. And when you realize that all of the decorative stitches that they produce are done mechanically. There's no software telling that needle where to go. Everything has to be orchestrated with something physical, which is quite amazing. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you are new to my channel, or if you are a devoted fan, please consider donating to my efforts to save more of these machines. You can click on any of the links you see in my videos or on the home page that say buy me a coffee or please buy me a coffee, and it'll take you directly to my own buy me a coffee page that is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, and you'll see it there, and you are welcome to make any donation of help that you feel inspired to make, and it is most appreciated. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. And I will see you in the next video when I start to talk about, well, was this worth my purchase? I'm about to find out. And those of you who watch will find out with me. Thank you for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.